This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Top Trump administration national security officials texted war plans to a group chat that included a journalist. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
President Trump says he plans to announce more tariffs on products like automobiles, pharmaceuticals, and other sectors.
General Motors is already redoing plants.
I'm Jim Roope.
New accusations against one of the leaders of the Columbia University pro-Palestinian demonstrations. I'm Clayton Neville.
Wildfires scorch 4 states, and we'll have news on a deal between the U.S. and Russia.
On Wall Street, word that tariffs may be eased and stocks rallied. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
Postmaster General Louis DeJoy has resigned, saying Monday would be his last day. Jennifer King, Washington.
All ahead on America in the Morning. The White House doing damage control after it was uncovered that messages on a chat app involving Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, the Vice President, Secretary of State, and other national security officials discussing plans for the U.S. attack on Yemen accidentally included a news magazine journalist. But Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports Hegseth claims nobody sent war plans on that app.
You're saying that they had what?
They were using Signal to coordinate on sensitive materials and
Having to do with what? Having to do with what? What were they talking about?
with the Houthis.
The Houthis? You mean the attack on the Houthis? Right. Well, it couldn't have been very effective because the attack was very effective. I can tell you that. I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time.
A magazine story says top Trump administration national security officials texted war plans in a secure app to a group chat that included a journalist. Among those on the Signal chain, Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth and The Atlantic magazine's editor-in-chief. Jeffrey Goldberg writes the chain included operational details of upcoming strikes on Houthi rebels in Yemen, things like targets and weapons. The strike started 2 hours after Goldberg got the details March 15th. The National Security Council says the text chain appears authentic. At the White House,
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of The Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it.
And on the Senate floor,
this is one of the most stunning breaches of military intelligence I have read about in a very, very long time. What we have here are senior U.S. leaders, including the Vice President and Secretary of Defense, having classified discussions of military action over an unsecure app.
Top Democrat Chuck Schumer is demanding a full investigation, noting Signal is not classified and can be hacked.
If you were up in arms over unsecure emails years ago, you should certainly be outraged by this amateurish behavior. I ask that Leader Thune and my Republican colleagues work with Democrats right away to hold a full investigation.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
On a day when South Korea's Hyundai announced a $20 billion investment in the U.S., including a steel manufacturing facility in Louisiana, purportedly in an effort to avoid tariffs, President Trump is adding to his list of products subject to tariffs, but suggests there may be some flexibility. Jim Roope reports.
President Trump says he plans to announce more tariffs on products like automobiles, pharmaceuticals, and other sectors, telling a Monday cabinet meeting, quote, "We'll be announcing cars very shortly," end quote. And he says there has to be pharmaceuticals. All this ahead of his so-called Tariffs Liberation Day, April 2nd, where reciprocal tariffs are expected to go into effect. Mr. Trump says the tariffs are working because they are forcing companies to start building again in the U.S., moving back to the U.S. He says the administration has identified $4 trillion worth of companies moving back.
All sorts of businesses, including the basics of automobiles. We have, as you know, Hyundai's coming in with a massive plant to Indiana. But there are many plants that are happening, and literally some are started already. General Motors is already redoing plants that were half abandoned, or they have plants that weren't being fully utilized.
The president says, too, that he may give some countries a break on reciprocal tariffs. It was last week that Mr. Trump talked about being flexible with some countries.
The word flexibility is an important word. Sometimes there's flexibility, so there'll be flexibility, but basically it's reciprocal.
These comments, including the possibility of sector-specific tariffs that the White House now says may or may not happen, come as the president also says he's going to slap a 25% tariff on all countries that buy oil or gas from Venezuela. The bottom line is, many things tariffs-wise is up in the air with April 2nd fast approaching.
We're going to take in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs, and we're going to become so rich, you're not going to know where to spend all that money. I'm telling you, you just watch. We're going to have jobs. We're going to have open factories. It's going to be great.
I'm Jim Roope.
One step closer to deportation for an anti-Israel agitator when America in the Morning continues after these messages. America in the Morning continues, and for those looking for warmer weather as spring rolls in, that's not the case for some. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Benz.
Unfortunately, winter's chill likely to linger across much of the Northeast and the Great Lakes through the next couple of days, thanks to a large trough of low pressure that will make itself home here through at least Wednesday. But there is some hope as we head towards Thursday and Friday, and especially the weekend, that we will see more ridging in the jet stream that will allow for warmer temperatures to return to much of this region. But until then, we will be dealing with some snow showers lingering across portions of the Great Lakes. There can be a rain or snow shower in spots across the interior of New England as well as the Northeast, though drier conditions along the I-95 corridor compared to that damp day that we saw yesterday. There will be a ribbon of showers and possible thunderstorms stretching from the upper Midwest through the Ohio Valley, though no severe weather is expected with any of this activity. Well, there could be some rumbles of thunder. That will be about it for any serious concerns. This activity will turn towards mid-Atlantic then for the afternoon and into the evening before heading out over the Atlantic, heading into the overnight. Much of the western U.S. will just be hot and very dry across much of the region as a storm track has lifted well to the north into British Columbia for interior areas such as the desert Southwest. Las Vegas and Phoenix may record some of their warmest temperatures so far for 2025, and no relief from this heat until at least the end of the week. A trough of low pressure will be moving into Northern California and the Pacific Northwest, allowing for some cooler conditions to work its way back across the region. And that's the weather across America. In New York for today, sunshine will mix in with some clouds, breezy high 57, dry in Denver, sunshine high 71. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Benz.
Remember, follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Amazon. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. An accused anti-Israel agitator at Columbia University is facing new accusations regarding his status in America. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
Columbia University protester Mahmoud Khalil was detained earlier this month. He's a green card holder and was taken into ICE custody in New York City for allegedly not fully disclosing his immigration status. It's now being learned that Khalil is accused of hiding his ties to a controversial United Nations agency for Palestinian refugees on his visa application. President Trump doesn't condone Khalil or the pro-Palestinian protests, but he did say that this case only scratches the surface of what some are facing. President Trump with Laura Ingraham of Fox News.
Back in Khalil is not a great issue, but back in Khalil is better than back in these other, hundreds of people that are really serious criminals. It's probably a step better than that.
In weekend court filings, the DOJ argues the new accusations against Khalil should be grounds for his deportation. I'm Clayton Neville.
Dry conditions have led to a series of wildfires in the east, including in New Jersey, Georgia, South Carolina, and 3 in North Carolina. Correspondent Julie Walker reports a state of emergency was declared in the Tar Heel state in the same areas that have already dealt with drought and massive flooding.
In North Carolina, the Black Cove Complex fires, which are 3 wildfires in Polk County engulfing more than 4,000 acres, continue burning with mandatory evacuations underway. The area still recovering from Hurricane Helene. Bo Dossett is with North Carolina Forest Service.
A lot of our forests are basically have a very high percentage of blowdown and kind of thick, downed and dead timber.
In neighboring North Carolina, the Table Rock fire was growing over the weekend, along with the nearby Persimmon Ridge fire, both consuming more than 2,000 acres. And a forest fire burning in New Jersey's million-acre Pineland regions was 100% contained Monday. New Jersey Forest Fire Services says it burned through 2,300 acres. I'm Julie Walker.
When we return on America in the Morning, economic uncertainty puts home remodeling on hold. After these messages. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments has a team of specialists in investing, financial planning, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investors cheering recent gains. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after a solid rally to start the week yesterday. The Dow popping almost 600 points. The Nasdaq up 400. The S&P 500 index was up 100.
The Wall Street Journal reporting that tariffs on industrial sectors like cars and chips are not likely to be announced on April 2nd. Therefore, you look at names like NVIDIA and Micron and AMD and Broadcom and Ford and GM, and they are all bouncing as you would expect.
CNBC's Scott Wapner. Here's Wharton professor Jeremy Siegel on CNBC.
The narrowing of tariffs talk is the major reason why we got this rally. And the market does not like uncertain, wildly fluctuating and potentially very high tariffs. It is willing to look towards the targeted tariffs. So it has his fingers crossed for April 2nd.
President Trump did talk tariffs yesterday of a different sort. It's a threat of secondary tariffs on Venezuela.
The president posting on social media, any country that purchases oil and gas from Venezuela will be forced to pay a tariff of 25% to the United States on any trade they do with our country. And the tariff will take place on April 2nd. Because of immigration and legal concerns he has with Venezuela and the way they're negotiating with the United States, any country that does business with Venezuela will see that 25% tariff kick in. That's an innovative use of the tariff power, to say the least.
CNBC's Eamon Javers. South Korea's Hyundai announced a $21 billion investment in the U.S., including a new steel plant in Louisiana, which will supply its car plants in Georgia and Alabama with product. The slow housing market means more people are staying put and just remodeling, right? Not so fast. Home remodeling firms are feeling a pullback.
Upgrades, replacement, climate resilience, and energy efficiency lead demand. But the wild card now, of course, is tariffs. Inquiries are now slowing down, and clients are waiting longer to pull the trigger on projects. And then, of course, there's budgets.
We're starting to see those budgets reduce. Instead of doing the kitchen and the family room and the first floor, maybe let's just do the kitchen for now.
Bruce Case, he's the CEO of Case Design and Remodeling, and he said uncertainty over jobs and the economy, especially here in the D.C. area, are the main issues hitting his clients.
CNBC's Diana Olick. Tesla shares rebounded yesterday, up 12%. It was their biggest gain since the post-election day pop. Tesla is coming off 9 straight weeks of losses. 23andMe shares plunged yesterday on a Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing. It has struggled since a massive customer data breach. On today's watch list, we get earnings from spice maker McCormick and GameStop. We get the latest on home prices, and we also get a fresh read on consumer confidence.
We'll look to hear more on those numbers from you. CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return on America in the Morning, the Postmaster General out after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. The U.S. and Russia are planning to release a joint statement this morning after holding discussions in Saudi Arabia aimed at achieving a Black Sea maritime ceasefire deal. CBS News is reporting that details of the statement were not immediately clear, but Ukrainian officials have already been briefed on the plans. A previous deal brokered by the United Nations and Turkey, which Russia backed out of 2 years ago, had allowed for maritime shipping in the Black Sea, allowing both countries to export grain. Meantime, there have been ongoing talks between U.S. mediators and both Ukrainian and Russian officials, but the two warring countries continue to launch attacks at each other. He was first put in charge of the U.S. Post Office by President Trump during his first term and stayed in place through the Biden administration. After 5 years on the job, Postmaster General Louis DeJoy is stepping down. Details from correspondent Jennifer King.
Postmaster General Louis DeJoy has resigned, saying Monday would be his last day after nearly 5 years on the job. His tenure was marked by the COVID-19 pandemic, a surge in mail-in ballots, and the introduction of electric postal trucks. The service has been struggling to stem losses, and earlier this month, DeJoy told Congress he'd work with Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency to shave the service's $78 billion budget and cut 10,000 workers. President Trump has suggested he might put the USPS under the control of the Commerce Department. Mail carriers and union members have held protests over the past week against a plan they say will dismantle the service. DeJoy said back in February he was intending to step down. His deputy, Doug Tolino, will fill the role until the Board of Governors names a replacement. Jennifer King, Washington.
America in the Morning for Tuesday, March 25th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
The Trump administration asked the Supreme Court to pause the rehiring of federal workers as some voice national security concerns. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem headed for Central America. I'm Clayton Neville.
Greenland is bracing for a visit by President Trump's inner circle. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
New troubles for a former Minnesota state senator. A Cornell student now faces deportation. The House to hold a hearing on judges, and sports highlights with Robert Workman.
Trump Media and Crypto.com launch Made in America ETFs. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
America in the Morning continues after these messages. Not a huge risk for severe weather today, but let's find out where the action might be. Here's the Tuesday forecast on America in the Morning with AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Benz.
The risk for severe thunderstorms across much of the United States for today will be quiet. And that is thanks in part to much of the upper-level energy that is responsible for severe weather shifting well to the north and east here for this afternoon, allowing for a lot of dry air across the central and southern plains to dominate the weather pattern and create stable conditions. With that said, there will be a ribbon of showers and possibly some thunderstorms stretching from the upper Midwest through the Ohio Valley, especially into the afternoon. That could include some rumbles of thunder, though the severe weather risk does look low. This will make a turn towards the east, towards the mid-Atlantic later on this afternoon, and eventually out over the western Atlantic as we head into tonight. Winter's chill likely to linger, though, across much of the Great Lakes and into the Northeast, where we will see a trough of low pressure hanging out for the day. That will allow for cold enough air for possible snow showers across the Great Lakes, but there can be an opportunity for a rain or snow shower as well across the interior of the Northeast, especially across upstate New York and northern sections of Vermont and New Hampshire. Showers closer to the coast. Dry conditions along much of the I-95 corridor after a soaking rain yesterday. Otherwise, the rest of the U.S. looking fairly quiet over the next couple of days. The south central and southwestern U.S. looks dry but very warm, especially for the desert southwest regions, where we'll see places like Las Vegas and Phoenix reach all-time high temperatures so far for 2025, and that warmth will extend into the Pacific Northwest as well. There will be a cooling trend for this region, though, as we head towards the end of the week. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Benz.
Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. President Trump is asking the Supreme Court to weigh in on a lower court's decision to force the government to rehire many federal workers that were cut by DOGE. Following the High Court's potential ruling is our John Stolnis in Washington.
The ruling from a California judge last week ordered the federal government to rehire about 16,000 federal workers who were on probationary status, saying individual agencies should make decisions on whom to fire, not Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. Trump's Solicitor General Sarah Harris argued this is yet another instance of a left-wing activist judge ordering an injunction to stop Trump administration policies, and that order violates the separation of powers. At a cabinet meeting yesterday, the president said the cuts DOGE is making are important.
We're doing it to help our country, and our country was riddled with fat, like no country probably anywhere in the world. And we're getting rid of the fat.
Also at the cabinet meeting was Musk, who praised the work of his team through what he says have been trying circumstances.
A lot of them are just kids, just trying to help out, and they're very talented. They could get jobs for millions of dollars a year. Instead, they come here, earn peanuts, and get death threats. So thanks to the DOGE team.
Attorney General Pam Bondi threatening legal action against anyone in government found to have been guilty of fraud uncovered as a result of DOGE's work.
As far as we are hearing a lot about fraud, waste, and abuse, a lot of waste and abuse, but there is a tremendous amount of fraud. And Elon, thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your team. You have uncovered so much fraud in our government, and we will prosecute you. We have an internal task force now working with every agency sitting here at this table. And if you've committed fraud, we're coming after you. Thank you, Elon, for that.
There are now some former government officials voicing concern about the loss of federal workers to DOGE cuts who could negatively impact national security. President George W. Bush's former chief information officer, Teresa Payton, tells the Associated Press, former federal workers who know how to access sensitive government information could be targets of foreign espionage campaigns. John Stolnis, Washington.
Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is headed to Central America later this week as the Trump administration deports criminal migrants back to their home countries. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports one of Noem's stops will be to El Salvador and the notorious prison that the U.S. is sending members of the Tren de Aragua gang.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem plans to leave tomorrow and will be in Central America for a few days.
I'll be in the prison where we sent TDA members. I'll be meeting with the president and also Colombia and Mexico and talking about building these relationships so that we can continue to get people out of this country that don't belong here and take them home.
Noem's trip comes after the Trump administration sent 2 flights carrying suspected Tren de Aragua gang members to El Salvador. President Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act, and that move is now tied up in court. Noem expected to make a number of stops over her 3 days in the region.
So we are in several other countries around the world with a message right now that's saying, if you are thinking about coming to America illegally and coming here, don't do it. You are not welcome. We have a legal process to becoming a United States citizen, and there are consequences if you come here illegally, and America has changed because we're putting Americans first.
Secretary Noem will visit El Salvador first, where she'll tour the terrorist confinement center. She'll then go to Colombia and Mexico and meet with presidents of both of those countries. I'm Clayton Neville.
The outgoing leader of Greenland is denouncing the planned trip by Second Lady Usha Vance and her young son, along with National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, claiming they had not been invited and called their trip a provocation. As Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports, the trip, which includes visiting historical sites and taking in a dog sled race, comes at a time when President Trump believes it is in the interest of Greenland to become a U.S. territory.
Greenland is bracing for a visit by President Trump's inner circle.
Who's doing the inviting? You said people.
A lot of people, yeah. People from Greenland are asking us to go there. We have many, many requests from many, many people, some officials too.
The White House announced Second Lady Usha Vance would visit the island the president covets. It now says both National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and Energy Secretary Chris Wright will go too. Greenland is an autonomous Danish territory, but for weeks weeks, the president's been laying claim, saying the U.S. needs Greenland for national security.
It's important from the standpoint of international security. And if you look at the ships outside of Greenland, you have Russia, you have China, you have lots of different people and lots of different places, and it cannot go on the way it is. It's not going to go on the way it is. I'll make a statement. It's not going to happen. So they're going there, and that's purely friendship.
The White House says the U.S. has a vested security interest in the region, and Waltz and Wright will visit an American space base on the island. Greenland's prime minister, though, is warning of American aggression and says the visit will cause a mess.
I think we're going to get it. One way or the other, we're going to get it.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Senator's wife faces court judgment, plus surrender to ICE. The word going out to an anti-Israel college student. That and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. America in the Morning continues. The bribery trial of the wife of former New Jersey Senator Robert Menendez is now underway, as prosecutors describe Nadine Menendez as a partner in crime with her now convicted husband. Correspondent Marcela Sanchez is following the case.
Opening statements began in the bribery trial of 58-year-old Nadine Menendez, wife of former U.S. Senator Bob Menendez. Her husband was sentenced to 11 years in prison after being convicted of accepting hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes from 3 New Jersey businessmen in return for favors. Nadine Menendez was brought up repeatedly during her husband's trial for her dealings with the businessmen. Her trial was scheduled for last year but was delayed due to a breast cancer diagnosis and surgery. She is charged with participating in the bribery scheme but has pleaded not guilty. A judge delayed the start of Bob Menendez's prison term until June 6th so that he could attend his wife's trial. I'm Marcela Sanchez.
The troubles seem to be getting worse for former Minnesota State Senator Justin Eichhorn. The Republican was arrested, allegedly caught in a sex sting attempting to meet up with a teenage girl who was actually an undercover police officer. Police now say that when he was taken into custody, authorities found cash, condoms, and 2 cell phones in his truck. WCCO-TV in Minneapolis is reporting that when he appeared in court, Eichhorn told the judge he did not own a firearm, but court documents now show the FBI confiscated a handgun and ammunition from his St. Paul apartment. Eichhorn's wife also filed for divorce days after his arrest. Eichhorn was among 14 people busted in the teen prostitution sting operation. America in the Morning continues. A Cornell University PhD anti-Israel student that the government is trying to deport has been ordered to surrender to Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which comes as his lawyer and the attorney for the Columbia University student fight to keep their client from deportation. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
The Trump administration was demanding a Cornell student who was a pro-Palestinian protester surrender to ICE for deportation, saying his student visa was revoked. But Mamadou Tall, a citizen of the UK and Gambia, is suing to stay. A Tuesday hearing is scheduled. His lawyer, Eric Lee.
The administration is trying to decide what kind of ideas get to go to the American people, and that violates the most core democratic rights that everybody in this country has.
And Columbia grad student Mahmoud Halil under ICE arrest, also awaiting his day in court. Meanwhile, the DOJ now says he did not disclose his UN and British embassy work or involvement with Columbia University apartheid divest. Halil's lawyers call the allegations thin.
When a non-citizen is in the United States, he or she has First Amendment rights. There's no question about that. If the Trump administration begins saying that individuals who are within the territory of the United States, who live here, who work here, who attend school here, who teach class here, don't have protection of the Bill of Rights, that's a very dangerous territory to be entering into. And the next step after that is you start taking away the rights of citizens too.
Julie Walker, New York.
The House Judiciary Committee is expected to hold a hearing early next week looking into the issue of activist judges. Fox News reports that Congressman Jim Jordan, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, will lead the hearings and that there will be a vote in the House next week on a bill by California's Darrell Issa to block judges from issuing nationwide injunctions. The move follows a deportation decision by U.S. District Court Judge James Boasberg against the Trump administration. Shifting gears, normalcy is returning to Heathrow Airport following an 18-hour closure and the worldwide flight delays it caused earlier in the week. Correspondent Naomi Kim reports on the blame game between Heathrow and the UK's electricity network over last Friday's shutdown of Europe's busiest air hub.
Heathrow Airport's bosses defended their decision to shut down following claims that there was enough power to operate after a substation caught fire. Britain's energy system operator suggested that Heathrow had enough electricity from other sources when Europe's busiest air hub shut down for most of Friday. The airport said it had to ground flights due to the time it took to switch from the damaged substation to 2 alternative power supplies. An investigation has been ordered by the government with initial findings due within 6 weeks. British Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander spoke in Parliament.
This was an unprecedented event, and we must learn any and all lessons we can to ensure that it does not reoccur in future.
The impact of Friday's fire has raised questions over Heathrow's disaster plans. More than 1,300 flights were cancelled and at least 200,000 passengers had their journeys disrupted. Nayan Kim, London.
President Trump's media company and Crypto.com are teaming up to offer a basket of Made in America funds with a focus on digital assets and securities. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech News.
Trump Media and Technology Group said they have signed a non-binding partner agreement with Crypto.com to launch a series of exchange-traded funds and exchange-traded products through the company's Truth.fi fintech brand. The ETFs are expected to comprise digital assets and securities with a Made in America focus. Crypto.com will support the back-end technology and provide custody and supply of the cryptocurrencies for the ETFs, which are expected to include a unique ETF basket of cryptos incorporating Bitcoin, Kronos, and other crypto assets. The fund still needs to meet regulatory approval and is expected to launch later this year. Crypto.com's broker-dealer Forest Capital and Capital US are expected to be widely available internationally, including US, Europe, Asia, and across other platforms and brokerages. President Trump's media company launched Truth.fi in January, not long after he took office. You can find me at chuckpalm.com.
Sports is in. Here's America in the Morning's Robert Workman.
NBA on Monday, the Celtics slammed the Kings 113-95 for their 6th straight win. Jason Tatum had a game-high 25 points before leaving the game with an ankle injury in the third quarter. Pacers cut down the Timberwolves 119-103. That's 5 in a row for Indiana. Suns shaded the Bucks 38 for Kevin Durant. Kobe White had 37 as the Bulls rocked the Nuggets. Mavericks ripped the Nets. Anthony Davis back in the lineup for Dallas after missing 6 weeks with a groin injury.
Felt great. It's the mental aspect. When you're coming on something like that, to mentally be ready to go out and play.
He had 12 points in 27 minutes. Wins for the Magic, Pelicans, and Raptors. The NCAA men's basketball tournament, Sweet 16 games coming up Thursday in Newark, New Jersey, and San Francisco, then Friday in Atlanta and Indianapolis. The women's tournament is down to its Sweet 16 as well. All of its top 4 seeds in each regional advanced over the weekend, most by double digits, though Maryland needed double overtime on Monday to beat Alabama and advance to Birmingham, where they will face South Carolina, the defending national champions and winners of 2 of the past 3 titles. No good deed, right? Those games begin on Friday. Hockey, the Stars blanked the Wild 3-0. Jake Ettinger stopped 32 shots. Wins for the Red Wings, Canucks, and Blue Jackets. That's Tuesday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. Well, among the stories we're covering next, the latest Mark Twain Prize for American Humor recipient. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. Actor George Clooney opens up about his new Broadway play, as well as his new place in Hollywood. Entertainment reporter Kevin Carr has more.
This weekend, 60 Minutes caught up with George Clooney as he put the final preparations on his Broadway debut in a show he co-wrote based on a film he directed, Good Night and Good Luck.
There are a certain kind of people who are the lifeblood of democracy, never strain in their pursuit of what matters. Truth.
The production looks at a confrontation between the trusted newsman Edward R. Murrow and Senator Joseph McCarthy. Clooney spoke about why it was an important and still relevant production to be made.
You know, I just thought it was a good time to talk about when the press held government to account.
Clooney's writing partner, Grant Heslov, sees the play as being relevant throughout the ages.
Originally, it wasn't for today, but this is a story that stands the test of time.
Ultimately, Good Night and Good Luck is not about any given political matrix of a time, but rather a story about power.
Governments don't like the freedom of the press. They never have.
And Clooney sees the heroes in a story like this as the ones who search for the truth.
When the other three estates fail, when the judiciary and the executive and the legislative branches fail us, the fourth estate has to succeed.
A pivot to Broadway, along with a marriage, children, and a new image in his 60s, puts Clooney in a new place in his career in Hollywood.
Look, I'm 63 years old. I'm not trying to compete with 25-year-old leading men. That's not my job. I'm not doing romantic films anymore.
Good Night and Good Luck opens on Broadway on April 3rd. I'm Kevin Carr.
A big night for comedian, talk show host Conan O'Brien, who was honored with a prestigious award at Washington, D.C.'s Kennedy Center. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports.
Conan O'Brien accepted the Mark Twain Prize for Humor at Washington's Kennedy Center.
Twain is funny and important today because his comedy is a hilarious celebration of our fears, our ineptitude, and the glorious mess of being human.
Less than a month ago, President Trump upended the Kennedy Center by ousting its management, which Will Ferrell just couldn't pass up.
Do you know what I'm supposed to be doing right now? Do you have any idea? I'm supposed to be shutting down the Department of Education, okay?
Conan O'Brien pointed out Mark Twain's words mean a lot at this moment in American history.
Twain wrote, "Patriotism is supporting your country all of the time, and your government when it deserves it."
O'Brien said Twain hated bullies and deeply empathized with the weak, adding, "This is all about comedy."
Comedy that is self-critical, deflating, and dedicated to the proposition that we are all flawed, absurd, and wallowing in the mud together.
Audio from Netflix. Conan O'Brien was chosen to replace David Letterman as host of TV's Late Night in 1993, despite no significant on-camera experience. Ed Donahue, Washington.
That's our show for today, Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. America in the Morning is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.